Using Excel to create a scatter plot. I have data here that I pulled from an online source that gives me the nasal length, so the length versus the width for gray kangaroos. We have two types of data, length and width data, and I believe they're in millimeters. What I want to do to create a scatter plot is select my data. So I can select the first two elements of data and then do Control-Shift down arrow, and it'll automatically go down to the bottom of my data. It's very handy to do that. But I can also just click in the center of one of my cells, slide over to the right hand side, and then scroll down until I get to the bottom of my data, and then release my mouse button at that point. Same thing, it works either way. I really like this because using the Control-Shift down arrow, because then I don't have to sit and scroll and accidentally let go of the mouse and all that. So this is very convenient to do it like that. If I want a scatter plot, then I will click on Insert, which it's already clicked on, so Insert, and then I'm coming over to the charts. If it's not showing, you can just click on this little bottom right corner. I do see a scatter plot right here, so I could just click on that and it would automatically do one for me. It's recommending some charts for me, and the first one is a scatter plot, and it even says scatter. And here it is right here. So I can go ahead and say okay, but if I don't see what I want, I can scroll through the recommended charts, or I can do all charts. And then this one is going to be under XY scatter, and click that, and it's giving me all different types of scatter plots. The one I want is just the first one, the basic scatter plot. So when I click on that, then I can just say okay. It's going to insert a chart for me. I want to come up here to the quick layout and choose the one that lets me put in a title for the chart, which is already there, plus the axis titles. And it looks like that very first one does. These get really messy. This one, yeah, so I have a lot of different options and I can go through them if you'd like a particular version of the layout better. I like to have my axes labeled, and I like to have a title for my chart. So those for me are requirements. And if you have another way of getting to that is to come here to this plus in the newer versions of Excel, and you can click on the ones that you need to have showing, and you can click and unclick and it'll show them or not show them. And then the chart title, same thing. So we can do that all the way down, take off the data labels, put them on, whatever. You can try out all the different things and see which features you like. I would like this series 1 taken out because it's not helping me at all, and then it makes my chart a little bit bigger, which is good. I do one click on the chart title and then I just start typing. I don't have to select and delete and all that. I can just type and it will replace it for me. And my title is Gray Kangaroos. So I type that, and you can see the typing shows up here, but it hasn't shown up down here yet. But once I push enter, then it shows up on my chart. So don't worry if you don't see it initially on your chart. Come up to here into the input area to see it. And then I'll click on my vertical axis title, and that is vertical, so that's my Y, and that would be the nasal width for this group of kangaroos. So I'll push enter, and then my horizontal axis title, that would be my X, and that is the nasal length. Oh, and that's coming up automatically. I do want to change it to a capital L so that it looks like a title. So I'll do that. There's my nasal width, my nasal length. And now this is a beautiful scatter plot. And there's one other thing you can do, and that's click on one of the data points. It doesn't matter which one. Right click and say add trend line. And make sure linear is clicked because this is a linear regression that we're working on. And then you can click display equation on chart and display R squared value on chart. And so that's going to give us two things. The first one is this blue line, which is not very dark. And then the second thing is this equation. So that's my regression equation, my best fit line equation. And then the r squared value is the square of the correlation coefficient. We call it the coefficient of determination, but for my 113 class, I really want you to use it to find your r value, which is just done by finding the square root. And you can do that in Excel since we're already here, equals SQRT, parentheses, and then I'll just type in that 0.7769 that the software told me, and that is my r value. And I can move my chart a little bit so I can see my r is 0.8814. That's a good correlation number, so that means that the nasal length and width are highly correlated for the gray kangaroos. So these are all the things I need on my chart. Labels for the X and Y axis, a title. I want to show the regression equation and the best fit line. Remember to do that. I will click on a data point, any data point, and it already has the trend line there, so it's not letting me add it, but remember it said trend line. And then I can make sure linear is clicked, and then display equation, display r squared value. It doesn't have an option for r, but we can find it by just taking the square root of the r squared, and that gives us the r value. We also know, because this is heading up, that this should be a positive 0.88, but if it was heading downward, then it would need to be written as a negative 0.88, and so on. All right, I have my scatter plot. I have a regression line, I have an equation for it, and I have an r value, which I found from the r squared that was displayed.